I'm Jasmine Moradi, and you're listening to the Queens of Tech podcast, a podcast series about raising the voice of workplace champions. 60 plus questions in around 30 to 40 minutes with women of color, non-binary, and transgender influencers about their journey into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I started the Queens of Tech podcast initiative in May 2022 because I would like to retain more women of color, non-binary, and transgenders in the tech industry. Talent is out there, but our work environment needs to improve for all to feel safer, stay authentic, and to be valued for our contributions. My vision is to raise the workplace ecosystem for all in tech by killing the imposter syndrome, stopping bad behavior, and increasing equity opportunities. Each podcast talk is built around 60 plus questions regarding upbringing, education, career path, DIB, and future advice. My mission is to bridge the gap between schools and workplaces by getting into the heart of my guest's personal life and career journey to inspire other girls, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders to unleash their full potential to reach top leadership roles in the tech industry. My goal is to raise the voices of tech champions around the world and together with companies, investors, and politicians, raise the challenges and opportunities around equity, inclusive, diversity, and belonging in our workplaces. Enough is enough. I would like to enforce companies to build a sustainable, inclusive culture to retain diverse talent so we keep the workforce power equity to continue building future diverse and inclusive products. Representation matters. Your voice matters. In this episode, I'm very excited to welcome my guest, Tech Queen Lois Melbourne, Chief Story Officer, published author at My Future Story, and Chairwoman at Sensori Robotics. Hi, Lois.
Hello. Thank you for including me.
It's a pleasure to have you. How are you today?
I am doing well. Hot Texas actually has rain, so it's good.
We also had rain here yesterday, but I prefer the sun. Now, let us get to know you better. So let us dive into your journey into STEM. Hope you're ready for the Queens of Tech 60 plus questions.
Bring it on.
Let's warm up with a few fun facts about you. How would you describe your personality in 3 hashtags?
Curious, pragmatic, and a storyteller.
How would you summarize your life in 3 sentences?
Logical country girl moves to the big city. Girl makes husband software a global success, and then retires to mentor kids and obsess about Formula One.
What kind of music stimulates and motivates you the most?
I love powerful female singers. Pink is my favorite. Ray, Meghan Trainor, Jax Johnson.
What is your personal motto?
In all things, be kind.
What is your favorite book?
My own Moral Code is my favorite. I think it's a great book. It's about ethical AI, and I poured everything into it. So it's important to me.
What is your favorite podcast then?
My favorite podcast is On Being, Poetry Unbound. It's so outside kind of my comfort zone because poetry is not anything I've ever connected with, but they read a poem and they dissect it, and wow, it's just very powerful.
Mac or PC?
Mac.
Say something interesting about you that most people don't know.
I don't have a tattoo, but if I did, it would be the word vote.
What is your hidden talent?
I am the best dancing alone at home person in the world.
You already written your book, Moral Code, but if you were going to write a book about your life, what would the title be?
I thought about this. I think it would be called, Is That an Owl or a Dove? And it's because if you can't tell the difference, which a lot of people can't, you need to be a bit more curious, especially if you're a squirrel. So it's about being curious.
Great start, Lois. Now let us dig deeper. Our childhood has a profound effect on our adulthood. Our early experiences shape our belief about ourselves, others, and the world. Let's dig into your childhood. Where did you grow up and how did it shape your early experiences?
I grew up in Iowa and Missouri in the country, and that's very pragmatic. You can be a risk taker if you're pragmatic. It helps you get things done, but you know that it's not always going to be easy and you weigh up the pros and cons of everything. So I think that really comes from that farm country kind of upbringing.
What was your dream job when you were a child then?
I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to travel the world and tell stories, which was so far away from what I experienced growing up.
What was your favorite subject in school?
I enjoyed my class called DECA. It let me leave school early to go to work, but I also enjoyed my yearbook and newspaper classes. My job at work was working with computers in the 80s. So I was cutting edge at the time, which was fun.
What was your least favorite subject then?
I hated algebra. The teacher, the math, that was not my thing.
So, what was your earliest memory of technology and the arrival of the internet?
My earliest was working with technology with word processors that were the size of a desk. And then the internet arrival, we started our company in 1994. In 95, I remember going to trade shows and having to teach people what a URL was, what a web address was. So we were pretty early for that.
That's so cool. And which were the three first technology gadgets you owned, and how did it influence your interest in tech going forward?
Oh, I had a really early car phone, the kind you actually bolt into the car because I had a really unreliable car. Wish I had a picture of that because I've not seen anything like it in a long time. And then a word processor. I don't know if that's really a gadget, but it was a tool that helped me pay my way through college and certainly gave me skills that my peers did not have. Oh, and I had an iPod, the first iPod, which I absolutely love.
And during that period of time, who was your female role model growing up, and what about her inspired you?
It was actually my high school art teacher. She was hippie, very conservative farm community. She was her own person and she was creative and she understood technology, even though that wasn't part of her class. She was just very worldly to me and didn't take crap from anybody. She was just her own woman.
And how do you think, based on what you said, where you grew up and the school you went to and the generation you come from influence your education and career choice?
Like I said, it was very pragmatic. I moved to Dallas, Fort Worth as soon as I could. I just had to leave. That small town thinking was just choking me. But I love the small town caring and the sensibilities of knowing where you're from. But it was important to me to have a bigger stage.
So then, let us dig into your career. But before that, I'm going to read two quotes. First one, how does the universe expect me to choose a career path at 16? I can't even choose what I want for dinner. Second, Abraham Lincoln said, I quote, the best way to predict your future is to create it, Lois. Where and what did you end up studying at university?
My degree was in marketing and advertising, but I took several technology classes. They were fairly new at the school, but I liked them. And I do think that it gave me the marketing and advertising helped with my power of persuasion, which was needed in all stages of my career.
Who and what influenced you to get into your choice of field, would you say?
I think being able to see technology in use was really valuable to me. My science teachers, I really respected because they could take things that were really abstract and turn them into something that we could understand. And that was very enlightening to me because even if I didn't get every detail, I felt like I got the essence from them and then I could read and pick up the little bits later.
And you went from a long career in technology to become an author. What professional roles have you had before that led you to become an author today?
I was a legal secretary, a word processor, a software trainer, a network engineer. I was a manager of a tech company that did software selection for corporations. But I started Aquire when I was 26 years old. Overall, I've been a software entrepreneur and CEO for the majority of my life.
So then, what does My Future Story do and what does Sensori Robotic do?
My Future Story is an organization that helps kids explore careers. So we work with schools and after school programs in trying to give kids a more open ground, if you will, for what's out there, what they like to do. Sensori is a robotics company that at the moment, its primary focus is on robotic mowing, but we'll have lots of opportunity to go into other areas of robotics that need precise location.
So, what are your titles? And in each of them, what is your main responsibilities?
Chief Story Officer for My Future Story. And I am a passive participant in the Sensori as well as an investor. I chair the board for the organization. And then I also, aside from those, do investing and mentoring in some other tech companies.
How did you get these two opportunities?
I started My Future Story, and Sensori is my husband's company.
So, what does a typical workday or work week look like for you?
I do a lot of writing because I'm also working on another novel, but a lot of networking, research, starting to build an investor community for the robotics. So that element is doing a lot of networking, but I'm also quite involved in the community, especially helping promoting women largely in STEM. I do a lot of mentoring, and there isn't a week go by that I'm not spending time with that. And then also getting people registered to vote here in the States. That's an important part. So that's my other kind of community involvement that is taking more time right now, of course.
But it is very important.
Yes.
I love the quote, choose a job you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. So, Louis, what do you love the most about your roles?
I think I'm really good and I enjoy the translation between tech and real life, or the application of tech and how it can be beneficial, whether that's in my day to day just community processes or because of the tech companies that I'm engaged with. So that translation part is fun. So is the relationship building component, but I feel it's tied together. I like bridging that gap between tech and people.
What has been the best experience you've had in your current roles? Any examples you can share with us?
International travel has been a blessing of being engaged in technology. It's one of those industries that America has great opportunity and respect in a lot of places for our companies. And it's not a commodity. Tech becomes a unique kind of thing. Giving that aha moment for customers and seeing where that technology can solve problems for them.
And what would you say is the biggest challenge you've encountered so far, and how did you end up tackling it?
Well, I'm actually going to step out of tech for that one, just because it's a biggie. And that was looking my husband and son in the eye last year and telling them that I had breast cancer. And that was the biggest challenge I've ever faced in my life. It actually killed my mom. And so I was scared. I was really scared. But technology, medicine has come such a long way that I'm now in remission. And we caught it very early because of technology. I am a very big advocate of investment in medical tech because I know that it makes a very big difference in people's lives.
Thank you for sharing that with us of your own journey and about your mother. Very beautiful. Thank you for that. What do you wish everybody understood about your role?
As a CEO, or an entrepreneur, you wear a lot of hats. And if you're doing it right, those hats are helping to support your employees and give them a better understanding. I wish that people understood that there's a lot of time splicing in the executive or the entrepreneur's day, and that can be a challenge.
And what is the one common myth about your professional field that you want to disapprove?
I think if I take it back to that being a CEO, not all CEOs make a ton of money. As an entrepreneur, I invested so much of the money back into the company. And so I think there's a myth that we're all bad guys and all in it for ourselves.
So, based on everything you said, what do you love about working in the tech industry?
Tech industry is by nature full of curious people because you have to innovate. You're working to build the next great thing or focus on solving problems for people. There's an energy that can crosses all kinds of tech because that's the whole purpose of it is you have to make new things.
Oprah Winfrey said, I quote, think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is not a stepping stone to greatness. Louis, based on your long career, what has by far been your biggest achievement, would you say?
Building Aquire from a handful of people, first working out of our house, to a global software company that really helped thousands of businesses work with their employees better and understand their employees better. And that kind of impact into businesses and for our employees, giving really good jobs. I don't think it gets much better than that career wise.
So, what would you say is the biggest factors help you become successful? What are your success habits?
I've always been willing to ask questions and admit when I need help. I think that's actually a superpower for women if they will use it, because the guys won't necessarily ask for help, just like they won't ask for directions. But it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength that you've built a network enough to reach out and ask questions and get the answers and not stumble around trying to make your decisions. So I think it's asking questions.
And then, how do you measure your own performance at work, knowing that you're successful or not?
For me, it's the retention and gross development of employees and customers or reselling partners, knowing that the relationships go long term that shows success.
And with success comes failures. What would you say is your biggest failure in your career, and what did you end up learning from it?
My biggest failures were hiring big company experienced dudes as executives for the company. They didn't know how to work in a small business. They expected things that were unrealistic, and maybe I didn't set the expectations right, but I did it a few times and it was costly and it was painful. And I've seen it happen to others as well. So it's a red flag for me.
What would you say is inspiring and motivate you the most in your role and career right now?
Right now, I think it's seeing progress in tech where the employees, they're passionate about what they're doing and they're bumping up against things that are new, some cutting edge stuff, and they just dive in. It's make a mistake. We dust off and try something else.
You also written the book, The Moral Code. Tell us about what it's about and how come you wrote it.
Moral code is about if I could build an artificial intelligence, what would it do? And its prime directive would be protecting kids. In this case, my protagonist builds an ethical AI and they become a little vigilante esque in helping to protect kids from child abuse trafficking. But the whole story kind of shows growth of an AI and challenges. So it's little pet, but as you're watching the development of the training, and it was important to me.
Very powerful. So to the listeners, go and buy that book because ethic AI is very important now when we go forward. So great book. Let us now jump into the influence of mentors, role models, champions, and sponsors. Role models can consciously or subconsciously be a powerful force in our lives. In addition, champions can stand up and advocate for us and open up the world of possibilities. Sponsors match emerging talent with leaders and influential employees who can help us move ahead in our careers. So, Louis, do you have a mentor, champion, or a sponsor today?
I have a large group of champions and friends that cheer me on. I'm blessed with that. Husband has been partner and champion. I've had many mentors over the years. I don't know that I would say I have a specific mentor right now, but I'm also in a group of peers that we meet in a very confidential setting and we champion each other and hold each other accountable, which I think is an important part, not just saying, hey, you're doing great, but to say, but weren't you going to do X, Y, and Z last month? That's valuable.
Definitely. History, as we know, shows that it has been more common for men having mentors, champions, and sponsors in business than women. So, how important do you think is to have a mentor, champion, and sponsors through one's career?
I think it's very important to have mentors and people that you can go to. Your peers can be good for some things, but in many cases, are also your competition and maybe lacking some of the same knowledge that you are. So I think having mentors and the right kind of mentors that are willing to hold their own ego back, but help you think through what it is that you're trying to do is just incredibly valuable.
Well said. I agree with that. It's all about one's ego also, to keep that away and wanting to help somebody to grow beyond your own success. Let us move on to leadership. Adena Friedman, President and CEO of NASDAQ, I quote, empowering those around you to be heard and valued makes a difference between a leader who simply instructs and one who inspires. And Shirley Sandberg, ex-COO of Facebook, said, I quote, leadership is about making others better as a result of your presence and making sure that the impact lasts in your absence. So, Louis, what does leadership mean to you?
I love that last quote. That's fantastic. I've heard a portion of it, but not the whole thing. I like that. I really think leadership is a number of things, and it's different things at different times sometimes. But I think setting a good example and a vision, respecting the differences of others, and to encourage them to bring the best of themselves to whatever they're trying to achieve or the group is trying to achieve. I think a good leader gives respect, and that's critical.
I was going to exactly ask that. What do you distinguish as a good leader from a bad leader?
I do think a good leader gives back to you, you receive respect. A bad leader assumes people are just going to follow them because they're right. Nelson Mandela is my leadership role model. His ability to have given so much respect to people, regardless of what their relationship to him was. And in return, he received a lot of respect from people that were very different than himself.
And who would you say is your favorite female, non-binary, or transgender tech leader, and why?
I love the poet of code. I will try and say her name, Joy Bhagwani. I may have not said her name correctly, but the researcher at MIT Media Labs, her voice to help people approach AI and technology and the methods that we're using, it's both emotional and logical. And I think she strikes so many chords. I really have a lot of respect for her.
And how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I try to bring out the best in others. I listen deeply. I think that's really important, and try and use what I learned to help those that are speaking and not just do my own speaking.
And as a leader, what values do you prioritize the most?
The ability to listen and the ability to give respect to people that are not like ourselves.
Then what leadership lessons have you learned that have shaped you into the leader you are today?
All about the people, their challenges, respect, their voice, all about the people.
What would you say are your 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses?
Strengths would be I'm kind, I'm creative. I'm curious. Weaknesses, I get impatient. I can be distracted. And I get into too many things, too many commitments. I spread myself too thin sometimes.
Let us now jump into the hottest topic in business today, workplace culture, unlocking the power of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Right? What do diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging mean to you personally?
That mixture of thoughts and backgrounds and the combination of voices, but it's across so many spectrums, some of them obvious, some of them not obvious.
What do you consider being 3 to 5 signs of good company culture if you were to join a company tomorrow?
Do they have a variety of backgrounds within their employee base? Do they have a framework to provide risk taking with safety? And then are voices heard from all over the company? I'm not a proponent of the top down communication style. I really want there to be voice from everywhere.
And as a woman, what would you say has been the most significant political or and cultural barrier in your career, and how have you overcome these challenges?
I think some of the most difficult was dodging sexual harassment, especially traveling and being exposed to a lot of different people. But I think being logical about what situations you get yourself into and recognizing the signs of what's coming helps you avoid some of the aggression that is out there.
And why do you think it's important for more women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender to join the tech industry today?
To use a lot of colloquial terms in this one, I think we have to break that bro culture because it will help make companies more sustainable. We need that diversity for raising the ethical computing kind of perspective over the exclusivity of profits. And I think the more diverse the voice within organizations, the better the company can withstand issues, but also avoid the issues.
And how do you discuss DIB challenges such as salary gaps, promotions, or maternity leave, etc., with your colleagues, peers, and or community?
The critical thing that I have brought to the table is helping to make those discussions safe but heard in companies. As a CEO, when I talk to other CEOs, or not just CEOs, but executives, high up managers, I will call them on the carpet for their assumptions and their writing off some of the importance of topics. And I'm like, no, back up. This is important. These things are critical. This might be the absolute biggest thing facing the individual in your company that's struggling with it, and they can't do their job if they continue to face this. And if you want your company to work, you have to address these issues, and you have to do it in a way that is sensitive to everyone and put your own bravado or filters on the shelf and really address them.
Yeah, you were talking about these challenges, and there are many public and internal discussions about the barriers women, women of color, non-binary, and transgender individuals face from reaching, for example, higher position in the companies or receiving funding. How have these issues affected you, and what is your advice on overcoming these roadblocks?
I bootstrapped my company in the 90s and in Texas. I didn't see much choice in that. I will say that there's others that have probably a lot more experience in some of those topics. But I know from being an investor now, coming from the other side, that networking is critical and that having an expert team around you is so important, and a diverse voice, experience with all different kind of facets of the organization really is a great thing, because then investors, I think more than ever before, are really investing in the people in an organization, not just the idea. They both have to be great, but you can no longer just have a great idea, especially early stage, because they're not necessarily going to be able to swap you out and have someone else do what you were doing. So having a good, strong team, not just a bunch of buddies running the company, is big.
And you were talking about investing in people. Today, tech companies invest heavily in marketing to attract women of color, non-binary, and transgender individuals, but they struggle to retain them. There's articles out there showing that women are leaving the tech industry. What is your best advice or strategies for how companies can work to build a stronger corporate culture that engages DIB?
I think language really matters, and companies need to investigate the language in their workforce and the top executives, because are their attitudes appropriate? The company culture, everyone impacts it, but the attitudes and the actions of the executives are the most visible. And you can't shape the entire organization into something that the leaders are not modeling. They need to embrace that diversity, and not just with latitudes or song and dance, which I think sometimes happens.
And based on that great advice, what would you say are the key challenges of implementing a DIB culture in a workplace and in tech industry today?
I think one of the big challenges is having no ramifications for bad behavior. If you're going to create a safe place for your diverse workforce, then they need to see action against the people that make them feel uncomfortable or that do not take them seriously. Also, it's horrible in the States that a political divide is weaponizing diversity, because that just hurt at every level: individuals, corporations, the economy. Fortunately, I think that a lot of companies push that out the door, but it's still frightening. And I hope that we can turn that around.
And how do you think companies would benefit? We were mentioning about having women of color, non-binary, transgender leadership roles, but actually higher up in C-suite level and boardrooms with a voice.
The example that sets for all hiring managers and employees is important. Also, executive voices, they steer products and decisions about services. And without diversity, how can you properly serve your customers who are going to be diverse? Whether that's diverse because they're based in America and based in Germany and based in Taiwan, or because of the other types of individuals that look or act like me. And then if you look at the ethical decisions that have to be made in business all the time, having diverse voice is going to give you a better balance for any ethical decision, because you don't know what you don't know until you can discuss with people that think differently than you. How do you know you're going to make a good decision?
And based on what you said, what do you think is the main reason we still see few women of color, non-binary, and transgender leaders in tech leadership roles and as startup founders still today?
There's still a lot of female bashing in the bro environment, to go back to that term, because I think it's fairly encompassing. And we still have these challenges in the lower school grades against women in math. And whether that's because we still have the same teachers sometimes that we had 20 years ago. But I think that school is such an important time to build the confidence in girls that then become the women in our workforce that will stand up for their own skills.
And another challenge is that data reveals a concerning trend of low funding rates for startups led by women, with only 1 to 2% of the funding directed towards women in the tech industry. Black and Latina women in particular receives less than 1%. What factors do you believe contributes to this imbalance, and what strategies can be activated to increase funding for women-led startups?
So much of the funding process is based on your network, and whether it's to get the appointments or to hear about new people that are investing or ways that people are investing. Networking is so critical, and it's not easy to get a diverse workforce, but it's easier to get a diverse workforce than it is to get a diverse network. You have to really work hard to work your way into totally voluntary web of people. So that I think is a very big barrier for women is who do they know? And it's important for people like myself to make sure I'm giving introductions to people I know that have the money or that are investing or that will take appointments and that women ask, who do you know? How can I get in? I see on LinkedIn, you know this person. I want an appointment with them. Can you help me? That's critical. You have to be aggressive to get that foot in the door.
And you've had a long career in technology. How much do you think the tech industry has changed regarding DIB since you joined?
Oh, there's so much more diversity. I love that. Just looking at the schools, at universities, and at tech programs that are geared around technology, the diversity of gender and race and age, which I think is valuable as well. That's an element of diversity. People going back into school and getting more technology education. That's exciting to see.
And looking back on your career, what one thing would you have changed in your working environment to break the bias?
I wish we had spent more time developing college diversity to bring those people into our company. We mentored a lot of college students, but I think it would have served us well to have had more of our staff moving with the people in colleges and students trying to go into education. That is what I wish we would have done more of.
And looking forward, what actions will you take as a leader to reduce bias and improve the IEB for the next generation in tech?
I'm working hard to expand my network with people of diverse cultures, diverse ages, both people that are younger than me and older than myself, and at different stages of their careers, because I do love to connect people in the right place. And in order to do that, I need to know more people so that I can be effective there.
Let us now move on to another hot topic in business today, which is work-life balance and mental health. How do you take care of yourself to maintain good mental health, Loy?
I think that mental health and physical health are very important. Carving out the time to exercise, loving on my dogs. They're the best therapy in the world. It's hard to not smile when you're watching prancing down the street. And spending time with friends, not shortchanging relationships just because I'm busy. So making sure that I make time for those connections. And I have a friend who says her love language is memes. When I see a good one, I will always take the time to send it to her because I know that she gets joy from that. It actually keeps us connected surprisingly well when it's time that we get back together again. Doesn't seem like such a big gap. So mental health is very much helped by my circle of friends.
Have you ever experienced burnout?
Yes. And it's hard. You have to take a moment and find a way to step out of elements of the rat race that you can't always leave all of it. I think a really big part is acknowledging that you're having the issue. And sometimes when you're working so hard, it's hard to stop and say, oh, wow, I don't feel so hot. And this is why. So I do think it's important work-life balance. And I think it's important to pay attention.
But what is your advice on how companies can create a more mentally healthy workplace in the new now?
I think it's critical to have flexible work schedules. And if you need to go to your kid's recital, oh, be there. It's good for the future and because it's good for the kid, but it's also good for the parent's soul. So find a way to make it work. And that builds incredible loyalty amongst your staff too. As a huge part of our employee relation is be flexible. give people that opportunity to live and breathe, and you will get the best out of them when they're working. I also think celebrating employees and their accomplishments, and if they want, their family's accomplishments. Celebrating the fact that somebody got their kid through Boy Scouts and is now an Eagle Scout, or their child graduated from college, or whatever it might be, help them celebrate because it's a holistic person there.
What would you say motivates you every day to get out of bed?
Oh, the possibility of learning. There's always something new, something out there to tackle.
Great. Now, let us wrap up with a few words of wisdom and a piece of advice for our listeners. What would you say is the best piece of advice you've been given that has helped you during setbacks in your role and career?
Ask for help when you need it. That's crosses so many platforms.
And then what is the worst advice that you ever received and how did you handle it?
Oh, worst advice. Don't dress in a way where you'll stand out in a crowd. Forget the hat. Be seen, be known. Now, doesn't mean you have to walk into a business meeting in a sexy dress, but it's just bunk to say you need to look like everybody else. Be who you are, and memorable can be very good.
And is there something you wish you would have known or a skill you wish you had when starting out in the tech industry?
It's something I still wish I had better skills at. It's the backing up files and knowing that everything is protected and there's no armor for attacks, but also that ability to know that you can recover your data. I still need to get better at that. I trust a vendor to do a lot of it, but that kind of makes me nervous too.
And if you had the ability to go back in time to when you were just the beginning of your career, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Throw your elbows wider and throw out your arms wider, meaning fight a little harder, throwing elbows, but also embrace bigger opportunities than you thought you could ever tackle.
And what advice would you give to young girls, women of color, non-binary, and transgenders who are trying to break into STEM fields today, especially wanting to become next generation leaders and founders?
Be interesting, be curious. And what I mean by be interesting, be able to converse about a variety of topics. I mean, not just your specialty, because that helps you network and learn new things. Because if you understand a little more about a field of a person that you're talking to, you can learn even more and they will feel more engaged. So by being curious, that jack of all trades mentally, there's some good stuff to consider there.
Last but not least, what is next for you in your role and career in tech? What are your career aspirations?
I really want to bring women, people of many different walks of life into more mainstream work and visibility to normalize it. And that's through both real life networking, but also from my creative side. I want to normalize characters in books or scripts or various entertainment and make that STEM is the home for a diverse space. And that's my mission at this point.
That is amazing because representation matters and is super important. And also, if we see it in the books, if we see it in TV and around us, storytelling is very important to be able to break that norm going forward. So thank you very much for that. And I look forward. Thank you for being a guest on the Queens of Tech podcast, sharing your journey without a doubt, inspire change and reshape company culture for the next generation of women, women of color, non-binary and transgender leaders and founders in tech.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you have worked in the tech industry minimum 3 years and would like to share your journey, please nominate yourself or somebody you know to i@jasminemoradi.com. For more podcast episodes and to learn more about the Queens of Tech initiative and to support us, visit queensof.tech.